Success Secrets. This book is dedicated to all the mentors that have come in my life and are continuing to show up in my life. Thank you. Success Secrets by Yadvinder is a guide which examines steps to take in order to be mindful in our daily lives. Then develops a framework to raise awareness of the importance of taking responsibility for your life's journey. He guides us through the steps that will help us reach a spiritual understanding of how to take control of our life in a positive and mindful manner. Meditative reflection is an important element in Thin's framework. He looks at the importance of goal setting and accountability as you set out your plan for the day. Thin weaves in inspirational stories, fictional and autobiographical, that show how challenges are opportunities to learn through awareness, collaboration, and planning. His guide will inspire you to be mindful in reflective practices so you can move from thinking about action to actually taking the action. By implementing his plan of action, you will take ownership for the path your life takes you on and be grateful for every step. I enjoyed reading Thin's Success Secrets and will use the steps as I create a plan to find mindfulness in my life. Roxanne Hibbard, Elementary School Principal, York Region District School Board. Chapter 1. Infinite Intelligence. I have come to the realization that my life transformed for the better when I started to understand how to connect with and stay connected to infinite intelligence. I feel that effort is needed to develop our relationship to infinite intelligence. I discovered that reciting, understanding, and then applying the wisdom of Gurbani improved my life. Remembrance of God by chanting, singing, and understanding Gurbani helps me feel connected to infinite intelligence. Prayer, meditation, and singing scriptures helps to raise the frequency of vibration and aids us in attracting intuitive thoughts that match that frequency. Wayne Dyer, 2003. Meditation is a method that helped me ask for help and receive the right solution for me when facing obstacles. While studying the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, I learned about how meditation can help us get peace and contentment when we access the gap between our thoughts. This gap is a field of silence where we can connect to our source and receive intuitive ideas. Chopra, 1994. Lastly, I learned from a conversation with a respected Sikh elder that Simran, remembrance of God, and reciting Gurbani with understanding is the best practice for the soul. Chapter 2. Serve. What answers arise within you when you ask yourself this question: how can I serve and help others today? I found it very helpful to engage in the process of writing the prompts such as this. I have learned that by taking the time to write, it helped me to clarify and organize my thinking. Another powerful prompt to write responses to is, quotation marks, how can I improve my service to others such as my family, neighborhood, and society? End quote, Nightingale. I have learned that there is a correlation between service and the flow of good things to us. Earl Nightingale points out that as one increases their service, their rewards in life will increase as well. He tells a story of a couple who moved to a new town, only to have lost hope and were planning on moving out. They complained of not being able to find a job. Nightingale reflected that, in quotation marks, our rewards in life will always match our service, end quote. Using this law, the couple instead could have listed and acted on ideas of how they could have served those in their new community. He further shares the example of how long ago people who had wooden fireplaces had to put wood inside the oven first to get heat. Quotation marks, wood must be put in before they can expect warmth, end quote, Nightingale. This couple expected results without putting in the effort, which relates to the following quote from the video titled The Rewards of Service, in quotation marks. Those who feel they should get warmth, whether they put in anything or not, are those who feel they should get maximum heat from too small a supply of wood, end quotation marks. When we think of ways to serve, it is helpful to try thinking of ways to help people meet their needs, quotation marks. Everyone has needs. Think of what those needs are. Then, which one you would most enjoy filling. Make a decision, find a need, and fill it. Proctor, 2015. I feel that happiness comes when one contributes one's gifts and talents to others. Halverson, 2012, also shares in her book Succeed that goals connected to contributing to others can make a positive impact on our well-being. Deepak Chopra also says that, in quotation marks, when we match our creative expressions to those unique needs, we will create abundance. Therefore, I suggest that we take out some time to reflect in our journals to ask questions such as, what are my gifts and talents, and what can I do to serve others? In the children's picture book by John J. Muth, titled Stone Soup, 3 monks are traveling to a village. On the way, the younger monk asks the elder monk what the key is to happiness. The elder monk replies that they will find the key in the village that they are about to visit. The village they entered was torn with fear, poverty, and pain due to many hardships. As they knocked on doors, no one answered, and the villagers were either withdrawn or selfish. The monks decided to start preparing some stone soup in an open public space in the village. A little girl from the village came by to ask questions and decided to help the monks prepare the soup. Soon many other villagers asked about the soup and started contributing to the soup. Once the soup was ready, an event was held where community members came together, told stories, provided entertainment, and the monks served the stone soup to the villagers. The next day, the villagers came together to wave farewell to the monks as they left the village. The powerful lesson that I take from this story is that there is so much joy in taking what we have, such as our talents, skills, and resources, and finding creative ways to make meaningful contributions to others. And that's an idea from Stephen Covey, 2015. Chapter 3, The Power of Knowledge and Skills. Near the end of my first year of university, I wanted to drop out. However, luckily, the insights I received from conversations with caring family members such as my mom, and while working in factories, gave me some valuable insights. First, I decided to major in business. During my first semester, taking classes such as economics created a lot of stress for me, as our family had just lost my father to cancer. I wanted answers to my deepest questions and learn practical ideas that could be applied right away. Although economics is very helpful for me personally, I found it hard to see the relevance of supply and demand curves at the time, and I wanted to quit. I got the best advice I needed to hear at that time. My mother told me to just hang in there and finish my first semester without stressing too much. In the summer, I did general labor jobs at warehouses to help pay for school. These jobs were physically demanding and required long hours. Time was flying by, and I was wondering if there was a better way to live than spending 12 hours a day sniffing rice packets to check for leaks and packing them into boxes. I began to wonder, why do the office workers across the factory floor of this company have the freedom to decide what clothes to wear to work less hours, and get paid more than us? During my lunch break, I sat outside and shared my question with one of the office workers, who gave me this advice, quotation marks, finish school now while you have the time. Otherwise, you'll regret it. It'll be much harder to go back to school when you're married and have kids. End quotation marks. After hearing this advice, I came to the realization I have an opportunity now that I can't miss. When the next semester starts, I need to go back trying my best, knowing that it will be my ticket out of this setting. I had to increase both my effort, persistence, and keep trying new strategies to succeed. I realized that knowledge and skills are the key to get me out of the warehouse setting. During the summer, I continued my passion of reading books related to the field of self-development. I wondered, is there a way to study this type of material in school? I discovered that Dr. Wayne Dyer had a degree in psychology, and so I wondered if the school I attended also had a program in this field, and made the switch from business to psychology. Both my grades and enthusiasm for learning improved. The material was interesting, relevant, and practical. I loved that I was investing my time to learn material that could answer my deepest questions about life, and I could apply and test the knowledge to improve my life. I realize now that both skills and knowledge are key. However, I think it's important that we need to consider if what we are acquiring will be useful in today's marketplace. In Cal Newport's book titled So Good That They Can't Ignore You, he argues that instead of focusing on your passions and looking for a job that matches your passions, it can be helpful to focus on acquiring rare and valuable skills that are in demand in today's marketplace. He teaches that one should adopt the mindset of a craftsman who seeks to constantly improve and increase what we have to offer the world. I think his idea of creating purple cows is awesome, which is a strategy where one does creative projects for the world, which really stand out like a purple cow would. Newport 2012 shares how one could go about doing projects where we apply our knowledge and skills to create something which is easily available to everyone in the service of developing our skills. In Deepak Chopra's book titled The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, he shared that when he was raising his children, instead of stressing that they should get good grades and do well in school, he asked them to focus on asking themselves what their gifts and talents are and how they can serve others with them. Chapter 4, The Power of Asking. Once we are clear about the goals we want to achieve, it can be a helpful strategy to ask for help from others. More specifically, I have found it helpful to ask for advice and help from those who have already achieved the goal for which I am striving to reach. When asking for help and advice, some people will say no. Please do not be disheartened, but persist. Canfield, in his book The Success Principles, shares the awesome acronym SWSWSWSW to help one deal with rejection. This acronym stands for some will, for instance, want to help or try what you're suggesting. Some won't, so what? And someone is waiting, for instance, to help you and try what you are suggesting. When asking for help, I think it's a good strategy to have the humility and courage to admit one's ignorance and ask questions. In Randy Pausch's book titled The Last Lecture, I remember a lesson I learned in a chapter where a gentleman came to visit and asked so many questions and did not leave until he understood the answers to his questions. Pausch stressed that as a professor, he would have loved to have a student like this, who has the courage to admit their ignorance and continue to ask questions. I would like to suggest that we first try our personal best before we begin to ask for help. A teaching assistant once gave me some feedback about one of my weaknesses. She shared her frustration with me that whenever I would face an obstacle, instead of figuring it out myself or putting in the time and effort to find the answers, I would just email her with my question. As a result of this experience, I have gained the insight that I need to first try my personal best and then ask for guidance, where I start by sharing my attempts at finding a solution. It can also be helpful to write out the problem and desired outcome, along with considering what you already know and need to find out. Van Oostveen, 2012. Chapter 5, Goals. Quotation marks. The two most important ingredients for a successful life are a goal and persistence. End quote. Proctor, 2015. I'd rank goal setting as one of the top skills for improving my life. The ability to clearly write out a goal has made a monumental impact on my life. I met Bob Proctor at a seminar who taught me that I should write out in paragraphs my ideal life as if it is now a reality. The reasoning for this activity is that it will influence my subconscious mind. Our self-image is contained in our subconscious mind, which influences our actions and results. Bob Proctor. In Proctor's early life, as soon as he wrote out his goal with a specific income amount on it and repetitively read it out aloud, he received inspiring ideas which he acted on that transformed his results. The same happened with Jack Canfield, who wanted to go from earning about $20,000 a year to earning $100,000 a year. After setting that goal, 1 year after, he also received intuitive ideas which he applied and had earned about $92,000 that year. The steps to creating a goal card include: number 1, decide exactly what you want. Number 2, decide the date that you want it by. Number 3, write it out on a card in the present tense. Number 4, review the goal card as often as possible and keep it with you throughout the day. Bob Proctor, 2015. Dr. Stephen R. Covey's habit number 2, begin with the end in mind, is also about the importance of knowing the desired outcome. Similar to how architects first create a blueprint before building a house. In high school, after hearing the audiobook titled The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, I learned that we become what we think about, and realized that writing out a goal card and reviewing it often will help me think about and reach that goal. Thus, I wrote out the exact average I wanted to earn on my report card so that I can get into university. I noticed that writing out that goal card influenced me to take the actions necessary, such as asking for help, sacrificing free time, joining extracurricular activities, and associating with others who are serious about studying. Quotation marks. Without a goal, it becomes easy to quit trying every time the going gets a little tough. It is the image in your mind of the goal reached that keeps you going regardless. End quotation. Proctor, 2015. If you're not clear about your goals yet, I would like to suggest printing out and using Jack Canfield's High Achievers 90-Day Success Focusing System. Using this template, you can write out your tentative goals for the next 90 days in the following areas: health, finance, career, personal development, community, charity, and relationships. In the book titled First Things First, Dr. Stephen R. Covey talks about the importance of getting clear about what it is important to you. A helpful technique to determine what is really important to you is to try Covey's 80th birthday idea, where you imagine that as your 80th birthday and you envision that key people are giving speeches about you. You can ask yourself, ideally, what would I want others to say about me in the roles I currently have, such as a father, brother, husband, and colleague. Franklin Covey. In addition to setting goals, Napoleon Hill suggests that we think about and get clear on our major definite purpose in life. He suggests writing it out. The process begins by asking yourself to write out how you would personally define a life that's successful. It could be a status, position, or achievement. Then you would list your plan of action and what you're willing to give in return for this goal. Quotation marks. You must give up something to get something. The greater the value, the greater the sacrifice required. End quotation marks. Proctor, 2015. Earl Nightingale gives a metaphor of two ships at sea. One has no captain and the engine is on, and is left to just float around at sea. What will happen? It might just keep spinning around. What are the chances of it reaching a specific port? Let's look at the complete opposite. Let's say there's another ship that has a captain who is equipped both with a plan and a clear destination in mind, along with resources to overcome potential obstacles. What will be the outcome of this ship compared to the example mentioned earlier? A note of caution. Planning is beneficial, however, it's important to be flexible and willing to change your plans if something better comes up. This idea is from Deepak Chopra, 1994. Having goals is great, however, I'm now moving toward the belief that we should focus more on the process versus the end result. Stephen Guise, in his book titled Mini Habits, shares the idea of creating mini habits. These are daily habits that are so small and simple. However, when they are done consistently over time, they can help us build our confidence and establish a strong foundation. For instance, instead of setting a goal of exercising for 30 minutes, one could have a mini habit of doing just one push-up. The magic begins when you do the one push-up, and then you continue doing extra, what Stephen Guise calls bonus reps. Breaking a large goal into many small steps is very helpful. I love the 5 next steps idea by Canfield, who suggests that we should ask ourselves, what are the next 5 steps that I can take to move in the direction of my goals? Jack Canfield, in his book titled Success Principles, shares how the Chicken Soup for the Soul book took off to reach the New York Times bestseller list. The idea is that if you took 5 swings every day with an axe on a tree in the same spot, eventually the tree will fall over. In addition to having goals, it can be really beneficial to have an accountability partner. Canfield shared a study where the group that thought about their goals wrote them out, told another person about it, and then did weekly progress reports on their progress towards their goals, had a higher percentage of reaching their goal. Have you written out your goals on a card in the present tense with a list of what you're willing to give in return for them? Have you written out the processes or activities that you would need to do to help you reach your goals? According to Halverson, it can be helpful to have difficult but possible goals. Are your goals difficult but possible? Chapter 6, Action. Quotation marks. It isn't how much you know, but what you get done that the world rewards and remembers. End quote. Proctor, 2015. Thinking about the process required to reach a goal is a first step. However, taking action on wise thoughts is better. Bob Proctor. A helpful analogy comes from the idea that we can take actions in life just like an archer. Let's compare 2 types of archers. The first just shoots an arrow at the target without much thought. Next, she looks at where the arrow ended up and then reflects, strategizes, and tries again. Eventually, this archer will reach her target. In the same way in life, why not just take action, reflect, plan, and then try again? On the other hand, let's look at another archer. Instead of quickly shooting the arrow, she takes a large amount of time planning and thinking before shooting, and may take much longer to reach the bullseye compared to the first archer. I like living my life following the mindset of the first archer, who takes action and improves based on feedback. Have you heard of the law of cause and effect? Brian Tracy's life transformed for the better when he started applying the law of cause and effect, which is that each effect has a cause. In other words, everything we do causes a result, And in quotation marks, if we do what other successful people do, we eventually will get similar results, end quote. Tracy, 2012. Brian Tracy dropped out of school and did many general labor jobs until he landed a sales job. He was given a set of materials and told to go and make sales. He shared how he started off his experience where he struggled to achieve sales success, but he failed to get results that he desired. However, his results changed when he approached a salesman in his company who was very successful and asked him for advice to find out what he was doing that was different from his strategy. He then started to implement those suggestions, and this drastically impacted his results. Similarly, when completing my studies, I had a study guide where the authors shared the exact wording they use, which helped them successfully recruit participants to fill a survey. I used their strategy and it worked. The strategy involved asking the following manner: can I interest you in, and then you can describe the action required. It is for, and then you explain why you're asking them to do the action. Our actions are more important than just having a lot of knowledge. In some of his seminars, Jack Canfield will raise a $100 bill and hold it up asking, "Who wants this?" Many people will remain sitting in their seats hoping to get the money. However, it was only the people who took the action to get out of their seat and approach him on the stage to get the money who actually got it. Do what you think is right without being the slave of the opinion of others. It's important to consider the opinions of others. However, have the courage to do what you know and think is right. In quotation marks, what other people think of me is none of my business. End quotation marks. Wayne Dyer. How can we ever make everyone happy? Have you heard the fable of the donkey, a young boy, and the grandfather? In scenario A, they both walk alongside the donkey in the desert. The onlookers criticize them for not using the donkey. Scenario B, the grandfather sits on the donkey, and the onlookers criticize the grandfather for being so selfish. Scenario C, the young boy goes on the donkey, and the onlookers criticize the boy for being so selfish, that he should have let the elder grandfather sit on the donkey. Scenario D, they both sit on the donkey, and the onlookers criticize them for putting so much weight on the poor donkey. When Bob Proctor asked Earl Nightingale how he managed his time, he said he focuses on managing tasks and activities instead of time. He showed a slip of paper with tasks written on it. The process shared in the You Were Born Rich seminar by Bob Proctor and John Canary involves thinking of all the tasks and activities that you need to do that are really important. Next, look over that list and prioritize it. Lastly, focus on the task in rank order and only move on to the next task. Once the first one is complete. Additionally, Stephen Covey's system of task management also includes having a prioritized list. However, beside each task, one can either put a check mark if the task is complete, a dot if it's in progress of being done, D if it's to be delegated, D if it is to be delegated, or an arrow if it is a task you'll do tomorrow. If you're interested in how to prioritize your tasks, the following ABCD method from the book Becoming a Master Student is very useful. Step 1 is to list out all the tasks that need to be done, and then place the letters A, B, or C beside each one. One will put an A beside each of the tasks that are very important. For instance, they have serious consequences tied to them and relate to your core values. Next, put a B beside those that are important but could be delayed. Lastly, put a C beside those that are optional but could be delayed longer. After each task is labeled with an A, B, or C, it's wise to rank each task in order of priority with numbers, such as A1, A2, A3. This is from Ellis, 2001. Once your list is ready, don't just sit there and daydream. Take action. After taking the next small step, what I realized is that the next step that need to be taken will come up. I realized that is the next steps that need to be taken will come up. It's kind of like how when you're driving in the fog, you can only see a bit of distance in front of you. But once you reach the distance, the next part of the journey appears. That's an idea from Canfield. When considering a particular action to take, it's helpful to consider the consequences of the actions we wish to take. Deepak Chopra, in his book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, shares the idea behind the law of karma, where each action brings a force of energy that comes back to us. He suggests we think about the consequence of taking an action not only to myself but to others as well. Have you wondered why some people earn more rewards for their actions? The law of compensation helps explain the key components of why this might be. Bob Proctor says the law of compensation involves three major questions to consider. First, is there a need for your product or service? Second, how irreplaceable are you? The more irreplaceable you are, the higher you may be rewarded. Third, have you developed your competencies and abilities so you can effectively provide that product or service? Dr. Stephen R. Covey also suggested the importance of journaling to reflect on what is working well, what is not, and what can be improved. Here's where finding others who have the results you seek is good, because you can find out the actions that you can try to improve your own results as well. As my mentors have taught me, it's good to find research-based actions that are tried and tested. Even better would be to look for principles because they are timeless and are working whether or not one's aware of them. Stephen Covey, 2015, that's one of his ideas. During the reflection process, it can be beneficial to write out the way you would ideally like to act in a similar situation next time. It's important to learn from mistakes and forgive others, for they just, in quotation marks, did the best that they could with the awareness, knowledge, and skills that they had at the time. Jack Canfield. To help us discover better actions to take, studying can be very helpful. It reminds me of Bob Proctor's analogy of looking out an apartment building. As you study, you increase your understanding and awareness, which results in you going to a higher level, like when you go to higher floors in an apartment building when using the elevator. Darren Hardy, in his book titled The Compound Effect, also writes about how he has a daily routine of studying each morning. He writes that studying impacts our thinking, which impacts our decisions and ultimately the actions we take. Lastly, Jim Rohn also stressed that studying is similar to the analogy of digging a mine for treasures, as even one idea can be valuable in making a positive difference in our lives. Time, quotation marks. Success is a sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. End quotations. Robert Collier, as cited in Canfield. Time is a precious commodity, and I would like to suggest that we seek to find ways to help us use our time wisely. Procrastination, in my opinion, leads to negative outcomes. For instance, while working in a factory, I got to know a gentleman who shared how his passion was in architecture. However, while in college, he let the workload pile up to such an extent that he decided to drop out of the program. I wonder if the following strategies could have prevented that outcome. Dr. Stephen R. Covey has an awesome way to describe the different ways that we can invest our time. He calls them the 4 quadrants. The first is called Quadrant 1, important and urgent, which includes tasks that are both urgent and important with serious consequences. In other words, these are tasks that one must get done, such as editing an essay that's due tomorrow morning. Next is the quadrant of leadership, which is Quadrant 2, important and not urgent. This includes tasks such as planning, preparing, prevention, recreation, and relationship building. The last 2 quadrants are to be avoided. They are Quadrant 3, which is urgent but not important tasks, such as when there is a task that another person expects you to do, but it does not really have anything to do with your core values. Lastly, Quadrant 4 includes tasks which are both not important and not urgent. Managing our time on a daily basis can be very valuable. However, in my opinion, it can be more beneficial to also combine it with the process of weekly planning. In the book titled First Things First, Stephen Covey suggests planning on a weekly basis to scheduling activities that can make a positive impact in your life. Furthermore, he suggests trying your best to ensure you carry out your planned activity at the scheduled time, the same way you'd be on time for an appointment with a specialist or a doctor. Covey taught that the weekly planning process starts with reviewing your life mission and then getting clear on your roles and writing them out, with ideally no more than 7 different roles. Next, you are to then set goals for each role for that week by asking yourself, what's the most important thing that I can do in this role this week to have the greatest impact? Stephen Covey. Then he suggests that we call these our big rocks for the week, and then we need to schedule it into our week. The challenge will be to keep your commitments to carry out your big rocks as a priority amidst all the other tasks that come up on a daily basis. Dr. Covey taught that making and keeping commitments is one of the keys to help us build our own character. I found that using a schedule on paper to be especially helpful. However, I now have shifted to using the O-Waves app on the iPad to help me schedule time blocks. This app is based on what research suggests is key for our well-being. including the option to drag and drop to create a schedule in the areas of eating, relationship building, flow, relaxation, sleep, work, play, and exercise. I like this app as it allows for flexibility. If you cannot do your exercise at the time you have booked, it's okay. You can easily drag it to another time block. For students in university, I would like to share what I learned about time management while I was in university. I learned that to be successful, we need to book in at least 2 hours for 1 hour, each 1 hour in class, in order to prepare or review the material for that class. It was especially helpful when I sat down with an academic advisor who helped me to plan in blocks of time. For instance, class time, study time, exercise time, relaxation time, family and friends, etc., before the semester even started, so that I can ensure that I would have the time for what was important. While going through this process of scheduling, consider the environment that will help you. I started to notice that there were times when I was very effective, such as when I was studying in the library. As a result, when reflecting over what you planned to do and what you actually did, you could also consider adding in your schedule the location of the task. In addition, a new insight I have gained is that for my own free time studying, I study way more when I'm at a coffee shop, such as coffee culture, as I usually am there for that purpose and see others that are studying. Whereas when I'm at home, there are so many other temptations and tasks that need to be done. Tony Schwartz, in the book titled Be Excellent at Anything, shared a habit of time management used by the top experts in the world. Instead of scheduling long blocks of time, for example 10 hours, to engage in an activity, they would commit to uninterrupted blocks of time of up to 90 minutes to engage in deliberate practice. He described these sessions as how a sprinter uses their full energy to run as fast as they can up to a defined finish line, and then when it is reached, they relax, recover, and then engage in the process again. The individuals who were found to be very good at their practice were those who engaged in deliberate practice for an average of about 3 hours, 30 minutes daily. Schwartz. From my personal experience, I think it's important to do these deliberate practice blasts. However, one needs to find a way to keep the channels of communication open with the important people in your life that might really need you. One strategy might be to communicate your schedule with the people who might need you in advance and give them alternatives to go to for help during that time. For the first book, Tony Schwartz sat down at his desk prepared to work for many hours consecutively. As a result, since he knew that he had a lot of time, he was easily distracted and not as effective. On the other hand, when he tried the deliberate practice approach for his latest book, his results improved. He wrote in 90-minute sessions of uninterrupted focus. After the session, he would recharge his energy by taking a renewal break, by doing an activity such as jogging. The end result of this process was that working approximately 3 to 4 hours per day, he ended up writing a best-selling book. Similarly, Napoleon Hill, in his book titled The Keys to Success, suggested we block out time for infinite intelligence, for instance, 1 hour to connect with God through meditation and prayer, personal development, for instance, 1 hour study for self-improvement, relationship building, it could be time to build and develop relationships, extra mile, 2 hours, for instance, to go the extra mile by finding ways to serve others, such as family members or the community, without expecting anything in return. Quotation marks. If you want to really excel at what you do, then do more than is required, always giving something extra, something that's not expected. End quotation marks. Jack Canfield. Then 3 hours for other commitments, which include rest, relaxation. Hill also suggests having 1 day out of the week to be free for rest. In addition to blocking out time blocks, another idea is to reserve the days in the week to either be a free day, focus day, or buffer day. This idea is from Success Principles by Jack Canfield, who shares that he learned this idea from Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach, who teaches that free days are the days where the main focus is off of work-related activities and instead is on engaging activities that are important and provide joy. Next, focus days are where the majority of time is spent working on activities that move you towards your most important goals. Lastly, buffer days are days spent in doing activities that are important but not urgent, such as planning and preparing to have successful focus days. Chapter 8. The Company We Keep. In quotation marks, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. End quotation. Jim Rohn, as cited in Canfield, page 227. Forming a mastermind group is one important tool that you can use to accelerate your success. Napoleon Hill's idea. It aids individuals to achieve greater results compared to their own individual efforts. A mastermind alliance is formed when two or more individuals come together with a common purpose in a spirit of helping each other reach their destination. That's another idea from Napoleon Hill's work. The meetings, as suggested by Hill, should start with a humble request asking infinite intelligence to help and flow within the meeting to help you access and tap into ideas that will benefit all members. In addition, members can share contacts, resources, insights, and ideas to help each member, in quotation marks, fly further and faster with least effort, end quotation marks, Canfield idea. Canfield once asked Tony Robbins about the reason underlying his phenomenal results, even though they were both in the same profession. Robbins mentioned that he had a mastermind group of individuals who were earning more than he was. Thus, is it not reasonable to seek out the company of those people that get us to think, grow, and improve our lives? Making and developing relationships with people is not only a great way to accomplish great things together, but it is also a great way to provide each other with social support and stress relief. I learned about the healing impact of social support in my undergraduate studies in psychology. I learned that the women recovering from breast cancer did much better when they were actively involved in a support group with other women that they could relate to. Another insight I gained from my study of psychology is the power of listening. This involves the process of listening to another person without judgment and interrupting them so that they feel understood. It's an idea from Stephen Covey's work. I learned how having someone listen to us can provide us with some healing. An alternative can be to write in a journal to express yourself. Dr. Guy Granier, also the author of the book titled The 10 Conversations You Must Have Before You Get Married, suggests that couples sit down once a week with their favorite drink and take turn in 10 minutes of uninterrupted time to tell what's going good in their life and share their concerns or issues that they're worried about. I learned from Bob Proctor and many others that we are influenced by the company we keep because we tend to slowly take on the traits and habits of those we surround ourselves with. Reading the writings and viewing material written by people you respect can be another way to be in their company. In quotation marks, people are more important than things, and that relationships are more important than schedules. Another idea from Stephen Covey. Thus, why not invest the time to learn how to develop, strengthen, and nurture healthy relationships with people that we care about? Have you heard of the idea of creating a third alternative by Dr. Stephen R. Covey? In his book titled The Third Alternative, Solving Life's Most Difficult Problems, Covey shares this process where each party engages in the process of synergizing. This strategy can be used when people have a conflict or a problem to solve. It begins with making a decision to ask each other if they are willing to collaboratively look for a solution to the problem that's better than what either of one of them has already come up with. The results that come out of this process are incredible. In the book, Covey stressed the value of having a diverse team of people with different strengths who work together to create awesome solutions to problems. For example, there was a problem in a country where people were getting sick because of an insect spreading a disease. A team of people with various backgrounds engaged in this process of seeking a third alternative and came up with a creative solution involving creating a detection and laser system to detect and stop the insects that were causing the harm. Covey in England, 2011. Chapter 9. Habits. Quotation marks. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. End quotation. John Maxwell, as cited in Canfield. I think it is important to learn and implement habits that can benefit our lives. As a student, I began to discover and implement the habits of more successful students, and I noticed my results improve as well. I feel that one of the most fundamental habits that have benefited me the most throughout my life is that of exercising, especially doing exercise together with others in a group setting. For example, Taekwondo is a martial art that provides exercises to strengthen one's cardio, flexibility, self-defense, and strength-building exercises, as well as teaching the values of self-discipline, perseverance, and hard work. Another helpful habit is one of continual lifelong study. This is an idea proposed by Dr. Stephen R. Covey. Og Mandino once mentioned a quote of Thomas Carlyle stressing the importance of reading, in quotation marks, "What we become depends on what we read after all the professors have finished with us. The greatest university of all is a collection of books," end quotations. I would like to suggest checking out optimize.me. It's a interesting website where Brian Johnson, he was passionate about reading and summarizing books. So that could help in starting your journey of self-development. Robin Sharma and Tony Robbins both talk about our morning routine called the Hour of Power, where you wake up and invest 20 minutes for each of the following activities: exercise, learning, and meditation or prayer. However, in addition to learning, I feel true power comes when we organize and then apply the ideas that we learn. Another idea from Hill. Reading is helpful because we can learn new ideas to improve the choices that we're making in our lives. A really powerful set of ideas came to me when I discovered The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen R. Covey, thanks to my uncle Harman Singh Thind. I learned about the importance of the habit of sharpening the saw, which consists of engaging in activities to renew ourselves in the following 4 dimensions: physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual. Meditation and prayer are 2 of the most powerful ways that I know to feel a sense of renewal. Having a set time in the morning and evening is helpful, as setting a specific time and place makes it more likely that it will actually happen. That's another idea proposed by Halverson. For renewing ourselves in the social emotional dimension, I find that being generally interested in other people is a good idea. It's an idea I learned in Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Showing genuine interest in another person by asking and finding out what is important to them is much more effective compared to trying to impress the other person by focusing entirely on ourselves. Another paradigm that I find helpful is to believe that instead of taking shortcuts, it's much more beneficial to put in the effort required and, in quotation marks, pay the price, end quotation marks, Stephen Covey, to reach a desired outcome through effort, planning, and problem solving. I suggest we avoid having the paradigm of hoping to get, in quotation marks, something for nothing, end quotation marks. Brian Tracy's an idea. When developing a new habit, I have found it effective to start gradually and focus on progress and small steps. It will be by making and keeping small promises that we build our integrity, an idea proposed by Stephen Covey. Thus, instead of making a commitment to meditate for 1 hour, why not start with just 1 minute and increase it gradually? Another powerful practice is to engage in self-monitoring. This is an idea proposed by Halverson. This involves tracking the actual time we are investing in the activity to see our growth over time by using a tool, such as one by Darren Hardy, called the Weekly Rhythm Register. There are also many benefits to focusing more on the present moment versus having a constant longing to be somewhere else. This idea involves the practice of being in the moment and enjoying the process involved to reach your goals, an idea proposed by Deepak Chopra. It's like a gardener. This is an example that Chopra gives, is like a gardener who keeps watering the garden without being so attached to the outcome of a good harvest. What this means is that, similar to the gardener who lovingly focuses on the process of nourishing their garden by watering the seeds and allowing the seed to receive sunlight, we too can try enjoying the processes that will take us to our goals, instead of constantly comparing our current status to where we think we should be. Another idea by Deepak Chopra. What about the opposite, where we entirely focus on outcomes and do not stay in the present moment? Let's take the same example of the gardener. I remember Chopra saying, let's take the example of a gardener, and if the same gardener were to keep on digging up the soil each day to see if the seed was growing, what would be the result? My suggestion is that we try to be absorbed in doing what is important now and decide, in quotation marks, decide daily and hourly to do what's necessary at that time, end quotation marks. I've learned that how we feel is directly influenced by our thinking, another idea proposed by Bob Proctor. Thus, it may be beneficial to dwell more on positive insights, thoughts, and ideas and what's going right in our life. This is an idea from Jack Canfield. Reflection is also key because we can take the positive out of our experiences and improve our lives. For instance, we can reflect on our daily experiences and find out what we can learn from it and see the hidden opportunities in the problems that we face. Canfield shares how once he had the intention of spending quality time building a relationship with his son, but a lady in the group got hurt, and he spent time with her instead to help her heal. Later, he got invited to dinner with her and her husband, and they were part of a nominating committee and nominated him for a very prestigious award. Thus, I think this means to have your plans, but be open to the idea that the universe has its own ways of intuitively showing you a better outcome compared to your original plans. Giving credit for this idea to Chopra. The importance of avoiding the sense of entitlement and taking the humility to communicate our needs and desires is also important. Dr. Guy Grenier, in his book, The 10 Conversations You Must Have Before You Get Married, shares that expecting others to read your mind and already know what we want without us communicating our desires and needs is a major obstacle to having a great relationship. Asking for feedback is another amazing practice in our journey to improve ourselves. Canfield shared an awesome strategy that we can use with key people in our lives by asking them, in quotation marks, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rank? For example, the quality of relationship, or the quality of your service, performance, or product, etc., in quotation marks. If the other person gives a score below 10, you can ask a follow-up question, in quotation marks, what would it take for me to get a 10? In quotation marks, Canfield. The feedback that you get will be key to improving your relationship or performance, in addition to the actions we take in response to the feedback. It's also key to know that we have the power of choice. Canfield, in his book, The Success Principles, shares a formula, E plus R equals O. This stands for E, the event, plus R, response, equals O, the outcome. He shares that when an event occurs, then we need to pause and be deliberate in choosing our response to that event, which will have a direct impact on the outcome. Canfield. Contribution, Chapter 10. In the book titled Primary Greatness by Stephen Covey, he stresses that there are universal laws and principles that are operating right now and that our lives can be improved if we become aware of and align our actions to them. Contribution is one of these principles that I feel can really make an awesome impact, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of others. As we strive to increase our own knowledge, skills, and abilities, we can find more ways to be more valuable to others and offer solutions to their problems. As Cal Newport stressed in his book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, why not take the focus off of what the world can offer me, and instead ask ourselves, in quotation marks, what does the world need? End quotation marks, Covey. Dr. Wayne Dyer also stressed the idea that each of us come to the earth with a special gift or talent to give to the world. He used the analogy of having music to give to the world and stresses that we should try to contribute our talents as much as we can. We each, in quotation marks, have a special gift of talent, and no one else alive on the planet has that talent, end quotation marks, Chopra. When we put that talent into use, abundance results, Chopra. To help in discovering your talent, you can think about this question. What would you do if you had all the time and money in the world? Chopra. To conclude, I would like to stress that each of us are like the pieces of a puzzle. Each piece is crucial. Chopra's idea. The challenge now is to unite, be helpful, and stay engaged in the process that Jim Rohn taught, which is to, in quotation marks, study, practice, and teach, end quotation marks.